I've been in film school for a long time. I've taken a lot of classes. My degree requires that I take media studies courses as well as production courses, which is good for like a well-rounded experience and education regarding film. And there are a lot of films that I've watched through my education that I never would have watched otherwise. And I kind of wanted to talk about a couple of my favorites today. So here we go. Coming in at number 5 is Jaws. We watched it because it was kind of the birth of the summer blockbuster, and it was a really fun movie. I really liked it a lot. Some of my favorite parts of Jaws are the underwater scenes. I think they're so brilliantly shot. I love talking about Jaws with other people because everybody's got like a different story. I love the stories that my dad tells me about how when he was like 7 or 8 and this movie came out, he wasn't allowed to go see it because his mom didn't want him to be scared. The first time I watched Jaws as a child, we had a neighbor come over. I was probably 10, she was probably 7 or 8, and she walked in the back door and said, "That shark looked like plastic." And we remember that as a family all the time when we talk about Jaws and when we watch it together. Jaws is a fun movie. I'd recommend it to most people. Suspense, some of the best suspense I've seen in cinema. I think the monologues that are given in Jaws are so excellent. I love the cinematography, the close-ups, the character development. It's really just an excellent movie overall and just really likable. Coming in at number 4 is a film called Daughters of the Dust. Came out in 1991. This is the kind of movie that I never would have heard of had I not watched it for film school because it's really not a very well-known movie. It's a very intimate film. Like when you watch it, it feels like you're watching something that someone's written about themselves, which is partially true. The writer-director wrote it about her family's experience moving from a southern state to a northern one and the impact that moving can have on a family and language and culture. And it was a phenomenal movie. It had really interesting characters, really interesting culture, something that I'd never seen before. And it was really interesting to see something like this film come out in the 90s and how it's tackling issues that people still have to this day, which I thought was really cool. I think the cinematography was stellar. The color palette was also really well done. I think the production design was gorgeous. This film means a lot to a very specific small group of people, and it's really, really inspiring to see people being so moved by a movie, and that meant a lot to me when I watched it, and seeing different people's reactions to it was also really, really cool. I'd really like to watch it again. I don't think I've watched it since I saw it for the first time, so it's definitely on my list for a rewatch. Number 3 is Oldboy. We watched Oldboy for class. We were heavily warned before watching this movie that, you know, it's very violent, it's very gratuitous, just be prepared. It's hard to watch at certain times, and I would not blame anyone for not watching it because it's very intense, it's very violent, and it's very obscene sometimes. So, but this movie is stellar. I was so glad to have watched it. I don't know if I would have watched it, and I may have made the issue with Oldboy is I've been trying to get a family member to watch this one forever, and he can't find it anywhere. You gotta find it on DVD or like pirate it because nobody's got it anywhere. The only version of Oldboy is it's on Netflix. It might not be on Netflix anymore, but it was like a 2013 or 2011 remake, and that's not what you want to watch. You want to watch the original. So Oldboy's excellent. I don't even think I can really talk too much about it without going on this really, really long tangent, so maybe I'll just make a separate video about it. But it's a crazy movie. It's wonderful. I think many, many more people should watch it. And it sucks that it's not very easy to find. Number 2 is Vertigo. Vertigo is a classic. It's People talk about it all the time. It's probably in the top 10 movies of all time just because of its cultural significance, its filmmaking significance. It's just a huge deal as a movie. And I loved it. It's so bizarre and entrancing. I couldn't look away. I think the production quality for the time is excellent. The creativity that went into a lot of the effects and a lot of the kind of tricks to lure somebody in were really, really great to watch, and you still see a lot of them being used to this day in current movies that are coming out in 2023, such as Beau's Afraid. Lots of production techniques, lots of methods of storytelling were reused and are still reused and will forever be reused, that kind of, I don't want to say originated, but are very inspired and held together really well in Vertigo. It's a great film. Performances are stellar. The cinematography is amazing. It's just a wonderful movie, and it's so great. And the messaging is also fantastic. I loved watching this in class. I don't know if I would have been able to watch it on a screen that was any bigger. A lot of my earlier film classes were like the kind of base requirement classes, and so we watched a lot of our screenings in a very movie theater like classroom, which with like a slope and like a really big screen. So I felt privileged to have watched a lot of these movies on a big screen, even if it wasn't a movie theater. So that was very lucky. I'm sure that I could find it playing somewhere, like maybe an Alamo Drafthouse or something, but it was definitely very special and very cool. Now, my favorite movie that I've ever watched for film school, it took me a little while to decide this because I was like, oh, but I love all the other ones. This one is the one that really changed my perspective on older films generally, because I was like, sometimes older films, they just don't really age well. It's kind of hard to watch them sometimes. It's rough. It can be rough. And that is true for a lot of films, don't get me wrong. But this particular film, when I watched it back in 2021, it had the strength of a film that could have come out in the 90s, early 2000s. The cinematography has aged so well that it captured my attention super well. I couldn't believe how well the cinematography had aged. I'd never seen any movie like that from even the 60s and 70s, and if I remember correctly, this movie came out in 1950. So this movie is crazy, this movie is amazing, and the movie is Rashomon. It was the first Kurosawa movie I saw, and the performances are amazing. The female character is amazing. I really loved her acting style. It was so understated. She was underacting really beautifully, which you don't really see all that often in that time period. And the story was so cool. I was really moved by it. It was just beautiful, and I thought that working around and still doing it in black and white, the film just looked so good, and the shadows, the lighting, everything looked really, really great. The cinematography from Kurosawa is always, always hailed, and that reigns true, absolutely. So many directors, from Francis Ford Coppola to Scorsese, has all come from Kurosawa. They are all inspired by him. George Lucas has based the concept of having the two weakest characters play as the main storytellers from the Kurosawa film, The Hidden Fortress, which is a great movie as well. It was the second Kurosawa movie I watched, and I really liked it. I still haven't watched Seven Samurai because it's 3.5 hours long, but I will be watching it at some point. I think my dad and I are probably going to watch it. So yeah, the movie is amazing. I think part of what I remember the most about the film, and what always stands out to me the most, is how well they shot in a forest in black and white. I think sometimes it can be hard when you have such busy foliage and leaves and stuff, is to make a character stand out and make a character look visually interesting, and they really nailed it. It looks so good. It was really well done. The story is great, and I love not trusting any of the characters. It's one of my favorite filmmaking techniques, is who can I trust? Probably no one. It's awesome. I think it's so great. You see it to this day in all kinds of movies, and it's really awesome, and I really like it, especially when this movie is still aging well in the days of AI, where you don't know, like, is this person human? Is this person not human? Are they an android? Are they a robot? Are they AI? What's up with that? I think that this movie, there's like a distrust in the main characters that you can see in movies to this day, and I think that's so cool, and I'm a huge fan, and I'm so glad that I watched it for these classes. A lot of people talk a lot of shit about film school, and they should. It's expensive. It's a lot of the time for some people unnecessary, but there is so much value to broadening your horizons and really challenging yourself to watch things that you wouldn't normally watch. I've been trying to do that lately, like going to see a movie in the theater that I don't know anything about, that doesn't look like it's up my alley, and then surprising myself. I went to go see Sisu last week, and it surprised me. I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would, and I was super glad I went to go see it. I called my dad after and was like, hey, you should check it out, you'd probably like it. And it was fun. I like watching stuff that is not a rewatch for me, because as much as I love to reread the same books and rewatch the same movies, challenging myself is still always something I'm going to try to continue to do. And I think there's a lot of value in it. And that's one of the things that film school has gifted me, for certain.